Hey guys, welcome back to the Mining Stacker YouTube channel where we cover all things crypto from the perspective of a miner. So today's video is going to be just a quick update on news regarding GPUs, right? I'm going to give some updates on this one that just got released, that got formally announced at CES, the 4070 Ti. Going to go over some interesting tidbits there. I'm going to go over some recent news with the 7900 XTX for any of those who are either looking at buying or have purchased already, especially if you purchased a reference model. I'm going to look into some news with the 4080 and what stock is looking like for the 4080s and the 4090s. Going to see what availability has been looking like. So if that sounds interesting, guys, stay tuned. So let's get right to it. So we're going to start off right with the 4070 Ti. So got leaked a few days ago, right? We pretty much already knew what the MSRP was going to be. And that was the big mystery, and it's $799 instead of that $899 when it was previously the 4080, which got unlaunched and turned into the 4070 Ti. The big thing here, though, right, which was a good sign, is the fact that it did not sell out. Even on that launch date, it did not sell out. So, like, the 4080, is bad of a freaking price as that was, that thing did sell out, was out for a few weeks. Stock is looking like it's coming back in, but that was a horrible, horrible sign for the future, right? So when this thing came out, cheaper price point, it looked like probably the same thing was going to happen, but turns out did not. So it still was available on Best Buy. It's still available on Newegg right now, and this is days after. It's still there. So that's a really, really good sign. Hopefully the sales start dwindling so we can get more price reductions, and Nvidia's not so greedy with these damn prices. These prices are getting outrageous. I mean, it's good for us who have older GPUs because the value is still there, right? But realistically, these prices are just, it's crazy. Like, there's no other way to determine other than nuts. That's 800 freaking dollars for this type of GPU, but apparently that's the market we're in. One other thing, so this is still yet to be determined. We're going to see more people are going to be playing with it. So I've been looking at videos of like hash rates and such of the 4070 Ti. And so this is on a website called hashrate.no. One interesting tidbit, so we look at profitability for it. This is going to be not necessarily off, but Nexa is pumping right now. So that's why the profitability is good on this, because they're having a huge pump, right? Again, that's not really what I'm concerned with, though. What was interesting to me was the efficiency on flux, right? So if we look here, they were to get 88.4 souls at 133 watts, giving you a 0.66 soul to watt efficiency, which is pretty freaking good, especially considering that I'm sure that as you play with it, people will be able to get more efficiency out of it. So, and for any of you flux guys, this is one to look at, not at this price point, right? But this is one to look at maybe next year or the following year down the road when it, once that 5000 series is out, give you something to look at possibly. Because it is pretty interesting there, considering that efficiency rate from a newer card. So it is going to do well, or better, I should say, on these core intensive algorithms. The memory intensive ones, not so much because of the lack of bandwidth, right? And that's one other big thing I also kind of wanted to bring up, because this is a horrible habit I have. I'm trying to get out of it. Is comparing everything in ETH, right? When I see a video card, look at the stats, I'm looking at that ETH hash rate because I have something to compare to, right? We all kind of memorize those stats from like the 1660s, the 3070s, 3060 Ti's, 3080s, 3090s. We knew what the hash rate was going to be, and that's what we kind of based everything off of. We kind of need to start getting out of that mindset because, number one, ETH isn't here anymore, right? Yes, the ETH algorithm is still used, ETH Classic, ETHW, if you guys are into those. But realistically, the ones that are going to pay off more are these other algorithms. So as you kind of start narrowing down which coins you're liking, right, which coins you're kind of leaning towards, those are the kind of cards that you're going to want to lean towards, because they're going to be different, right? If you're going to be like mining things more like Caspa, Flux, Caspa's not going to be GPU mineable for much longer, but if you're like into Flux, because I know a lot of you guys are, a lot of you guys do not give a shit about profitability, you're just in it for the Flux, you want to look at these things, right? Because these are the type of cards you're going to want to look at in the future once these prices do drop. So just something to keep in mind, right? Whether it's Flux or Ergo or whatever you're looking at long term, these are things you need to kind of start thinking at when you're looking at new GPUs that are coming out. Not necessarily, again, to buy now, but in the future, in a year, year and a half, 2 years from now, when GPU mining does come back. Something you want to keep in mind, okay? So now let's switch gears. Let's talk about the 7900 XTX. So we've been hearing it, right? We've been watching videos, all these like tech videos regarding the 7900 XTX thermal throttling, specifically the reference model. So these things are specific with that reference model. It is something up with the cooler. AMD finally acknowledged it a few days ago. This is part of the official statement. So AMD confirms Radeon RX 7900 XTX thermal solution issues, committed to provide a solution to affected users, which is a way better answer than what they were giving initially, right? There was emails of people, emailing AMD specifically, letting them know about the issues to try to RMA it, and essentially they got a response saying that that's within normal range. Even specifying that it was hitting like 110C, which is super duper high, especially for just gaming, right? So here we can see over the past week, users started reporting a serious issue with the Radeon RX 7900 XTX NBA reference graphic cards that caused overheating and resulted in thermal throttling. This made reference designs perform worse since they were running at lower clock speeds, and while the initial response from AMD was that everything was normal and declined an RMA to a customer, the company later softened its position and asked affected users to contact the support team, right? So they finally now started taking more seriously. I'm assuming that they probably start getting more and more requests, and that's what finally led to the decision, which is good, right? Especially after all the trash talking with the 4090 fire fiasco, so looks like it's biting them in the butt. So here's another thing to take note of. AMD states that the problem is present within a limited number of Radeon RX 7900 XTX graphics cards, but it looks like the actual number of affected graphics cards might be higher and within the range of thousands, as mentioned by Igor's lab. Okay, so it might affect more, and this is another big tidbit, especially for those of you who did purchase it, right? This was interesting. I wasn't aware of this. So there have also been reports that the problem arises around 2 to 3 weeks into the usage of the AMD Radeon RX 7900 XTX graphics cards. So there may be more cases popping up soon if that is true. The Radeon RX 7900 XTX NBA reference graphics cards were among the first designs to hit retail shelves, and a lot of users bought them since they were the only ones priced at MSRP. But now these same graphics cards are affected by thermal throttling and overheating issues, which may lead to a major recall or RMA. So something to take note of, guys, especially because, for example, this is the one I was looking at because of the form factor of it, and the fact that it only needed 2 8 pins. Right, so initially when the XTX was announced, I was kind of intrigued the fact that they didn't use GDDR6X, they used the regular GDDR6. And the hope was maybe that the thermal issues weren't as bad because we know the X run really hot, right? Those of you guys with like 3080s, 3090s know exactly what I'm talking about. Versus things like the 3060 Ti used the regular GDDR6, and those weren't as bad, right? So I was hoping maybe, depending on how things were, maybe the cooling situation was going to be okay. But as soon as I saw videos of people, posting up hash rates, even prior to this, I was looking at the temperatures and they were like 105, 108, 110C. So at that point, that was the one viability aspect that I was looking at, and that kind of threw it out the window, so I ended up just selling it. So that's that. And then some more bad news for those of you who did get it. So this is the headline. AMD allegedly has no more Radeon RX 7900 XTX reference GPU stock to fulfill RMA requests. So this kind of sucks for those of you guys in the position who do want to RMA. It looks like people have been setting them in, and they've been essentially getting a response saying that they don't have enough to fulfill it, and that's going to be a little while. So here's a quick little quote. But in the most recent email, it looks like AMD has retracted from their 2-week statement and now listed an unknown period, which points out several things. It looks like AMD might be getting a lot of RMA requests for the reference 7900 XTX graphics cards, or the initial supply wouldn't have been as big as previously reported and has already dried out. It may also be possible that the overall number of graphics cards affected by the thermal design flaw might be much larger than previously anticipated. We have already heard about thousands of reference models allegedly with the issue, right? So kind of getting worse and worse for them. I'm sure eventually it will get fixed. They will take care of it. But for those of you who do have it, even if you're unsure if you have it, I would still probably RMA it. I would give it some time though for them to build stock, and I would still RMA it just in case it's something that happens later on, right? As we saw in the other article, typically people get it 2 to 3 weeks later, but depending on your usage, you may not notice it until even farther down the line, right? Especially for those of you who game, but not necessarily game too often. Like I game, but I game like once, twice a week, right? I'm very limited on that. So chances are, like if, for example, if I did have it, I wouldn't see it arise until way down the road possibly, right? So something to keep in mind for those of you who are looking at it. So one other bit of news now, and this is regarding the possibility of the 4070, so the regular 4070 and the 4060 Ti. So this is another article from WCCF Tech. Nvidia preps mass production of 2 more 8104 ADA GPUs, possibly the 4070 and 4060 Ti, right? So the rumor mill was having it possibly releasing in February, like the 4070 releasing in February, 3060 Ti possibly in March. Was hoping that something was going to come out at CES, but for the desktop versions, nothing did. They did announce the laptop versions, which we're not concerned about. So was a little disappointed to not hear anything there, but here was this article, and this was from just today, actually. So I'm assuming, right, this is a rumor, but I'm assuming it was something from CES, right? Again, we don't know, pure speculation, but let's look at what the big point is here. So now coming to the production plan, the 8104 250 GPU SKU will be the first to hit production in the second half of February, followed by the 8104 251 SKU, which will hit mass production by the second half of March. So not releasing, it's barely going to begin production at these points. So there's currently no shelf date mentioned for each card, but it is likely to be in the second half of 2023. So not good news for those of us who are expecting possibly in the spring. Looks like it's going to be the second half. So maybe like August, September timeframe. I'm sure sometime in the summer we'll hear more news about it as far as release dates go. So again, I was going to be really curious about these just to see, right, price points. What these lower end cards are going to be priced at, because that'll kind of determine where these, existing 3060s and 3070s are going to be priced at. But the fact that they got delayed that far down the line, the prices are probably going to stay about where they are. I don't see them going much lower, which for those of you who are thinking of selling, it's kind of a good sign because they may be worth a little bit more in the short term. Like me, for example, I'm still on the fence. I'm down to because I sold a good chunk before the halving. I mainly focused on selling the inefficient cards. So I had like 3080s, 3090s. I sold those. I mainly kept my 3070s and 3060 Ti's. I've been kind of holding on to them. Did a little spec mining here and there. Gonna do a little bit more spec mining here and there, but haven't really done anything significant. And at this point, I'm still contemplating how many more to sell. I'm pretty confident I'm going to sell maybe half of what I have left and keep it down to like 7/8, so keep essentially just one small rig. Still not sure yet, still on the fence as I've slowly been transitioning to ASICs. But again, I think it's still going to come back, but it's going to be farther down the road. Again, we don't know. Going to try to wait and see. But it's what I've been looking at, but it's a hard choice, right? Especially right now, it's like it almost makes more sense to like dump them all and just buy cheap coins, right? Have more money to like DCA into, or to pay off some of these ASICs. It's hard to tell, man. I just don't want to let them go because, they did so well before. They paid out themselves off a long time ago. And it's just hard. For those of you who GPU mine, especially because a lot of these cards, I've had them over 2 years now. They were workhorses. They did their thing. But realistically, it kind of makes sense that it might be time to let them go. Especially if we get bigger price dips. I think that would be the number one convincing factor is if something else happened and we get a huge price dip, then away they go most likely. But we'll see. Time will tell. All right, so now let's get into kind of a funny one. This was a tweet from MSI actually, and let's read the tweet. So, like a towering pillar, the Nvidia GeForce 4070 Ti is now on sale at our MSI store. Experience the power of the Ada Lovelace architecture at a cost not as bad as a 4080. Kind of poking fun at the ridiculous price of the 4080. And this is kind of funny coming from MSI. Even they think it's outrageous. So just kind of a funny jab at them. Um, Thought I wanted to point that out. So speaking of the 4080s, so these guys now are pretty much in stock everywhere. Like even the OEM, the actual Nvidia card. If you go on Best Buy right now, it's under see details, but clicking on it was able to add it to cart. It makes you do the whole, check your store stock thing, and it lets you pick it up. So it's not necessarily in stock at the store, but it'll get shipped there like in a week or whatever. So, and it's been up for quite a few days now, if not a week, possibly even longer. I just decided to look, and it's been adding it to cart, and it's been there. It's been adding, no issues there. So the stock is there now, right at MSRP. So we'll see if it dips down anymore. I know for those of you who have like Best Buy credit cards, they do those 10% coupons. So that's something to look at. It would bring it down to what, like 1080, which isn't horrible, right? Or if any of you guys, trying to get your credit increased, sometimes they have those credit card promos where, you spend $1,000, they give you $300 cash back, etc., etc. So there are those things too if you're looking, if you're in the market for it. I'm not looking at them at all, but for those of you who are, and then the 4090 still been out of stock for the most part. So it has been coming in stock here, back and forth, a couple of days, a little bit of stock. But even at like inflated prices, it just sells out, right? And it's hard to really tell if it's just lack of stock, like how many they're restocking. Are they restocking like 20 at a time, or is it like hundreds or thousands? We don't know, but they have been restocking, but they've been selling out even at inflated prices, even at like 1700, 1800. They come back in stock and they're immediately out of stock, right? So in case you guys aren't familiar, this is a good website just to look at prices, look at, where the trends are going. Nownstock.net. You can sign up. You can put like little, alerts for when it comes back in stock, but I mainly use it for that reason, and also just to look at price history, right? A lot of people are complaining, oh, 4090 hasn't restocked at all. Well, you can actually see it on here that it indeed has. It has fairly often. It's just people are just picking them up. People are just scooping them up regardless of the price. They don't necessarily care, and they're picking them up. But the price overall has kind of been going down though, right? Another website a lot of people aren't aware of is like going to StockX, and it's good for buying new cards, right? Because it's a lot of resellers. So as you guys know, right, GPUs has essentially been a bots game for a couple of years now, right? And again, for those of you guys who are familiar in the sneaker world, it's been a bot game for years and years and years. So it's not something, so for those of you who purchase Jordans and such, Yeezys, you know all about it. You're very familiar with bots. You're very familiar with the process. And a lot of those guys just transition to GPUs because of the craze, right? So that's a big part of the reason why StockX, who's not a company who would normally be dealing with it, sells them. But anyways, they currently have some down at 1850, right? So this is the buy it now. This isn't like a thing. This is the actual buy it now price. And it's kind of interesting too because it helps you see price trends, right? Especially with the more popular models. You can see the amount of sales, what they were selling for. You can see it all in real time, right? So even this one, they don't have that many. Not that many have sold. That's the reason. But you can see the sale date, the amount, what people are paying for them. So it helps you really see those trends, right? Especially with the more popular cards. If we go to the founders, you can see the sales, and you're going to see a lot more data, right? So you're going to see a lot more sales. You'll definitely see the price trends. You'll see when there's dips and such. Just to give you a ballpark of how hype things are, where the market is trending towards, right? So just something to keep your eye on. All right, guys, just wanted to give you a quick little update of what's going on in the GPU world. I know it's kind of a little off topic, but not really. Again, if you're a GPU miner, you want to pay attention to these things. You want to see where the trends are, what prices are looking at, because it's going to affect the price, especially if you're looking at picking up price cards at a discount, like the previous gens. These will kind of dictate where the market goes, right? If we see these things falling off, then chances are the prices may go down. Like a good sign is with that 4070 Ti not selling out, so maybe prices will start lowering, right? But again, I've mainly been waiting for that 4060, the 4070, the regular cheaper versions, because again, that's going to dictate the market. Because if those prices are also inflated, like if the MSRP on the 4070 is only like $699 and the thing sells out instantly, and then the 4060 Ti comes in at $599 and sells out instantly, then chances are those prices are not gonna get the dip that we would like, right? But if they come down aggressive, if the 4060 Ti comes in at $399, then we can start seeing those, $200, $150 3060 Ti's possibly, especially once GPU miners capitulate. That's another big thing that hasn't really happened, is that prices are still high, right? They've literally been almost the exact same since the merge, right? Even just like mining gear, octo miners, things of that sort. I've been like keeping an eye on those. They haven't really gone down much, right? People are still hanging on, still a ton of hardware out. People are just like ready to go essentially. So until those guys capitulate, if they do capitulate, at this point, considering how long it's been already and they haven't even started, who knows? They may not even capitulate, especially if we get some random coin that pumps and reignites the market. We don't know. A lot of variables. So just some stuff to think about, guys. Things to take a look at. So thank you for watching, guys. Another good video, and I am out.